Alright, let's see if we can do this quickly. I decided to shoot a quick video of this, mostly because I ran across a number of horribly bad videos about hacking these things together. What we're doing is replacing the battery on a 2006 Honda Pilot, and we're going to replace this battery terminal, which is all corroded and doing weird stuff. Now I know for a fact that that bolt or that nut is rounded off, so I'm either going to have to take it out with like vise grips or something, or cut it off or something along those lines. And then I'll show you what I'll do with replacing the terminal. We should be able to make this look decent and be reliable. And I don't know if I'll show you or not, but in the end, I can't stand all this crud, so it's going to actually get washed. Alright, let me set you up and we'll get going. This is one of those few jobs that's messy enough that I will put gloves on. And actually, this is actually a good tip. If your replacement battery is in the trunk, unlock the trunk before you disconnect the battery. Wow, that's not turning at all. Let's see if I can force the socket onto it. Along those lines, I never know why they make these things so soft. You know, I feel better if I can get that square on there, but none of these 𝗖𝗶𝘃𝗶𝗰s actually have thin walls because they're intended to deal with things that are stuck. Yeah, that's not even trying. time for plan B or C. Well, let's call this B1/2. Before I go full on destructive, let's see if I have luck with a different pair of visors. Well, I don't know where I lost you, but I tried a number of different pliers and then finally I went to cutting. And now I basically cut the bolt off. I cut through the middle of the nut and it still doesn't even come off the bolt. I don't know if you're in focus or not, but alright, let's get the battery out of the way. I generally like to leave the carry handles on them, even though they're not supposed to be left on. Just to avoid some of that monkey business. Alright, let's see what we're dealing with this terminal. Yeah. We end up cutting that. Push it. Yes. We can get that out of the way. All right. much better. Now I've also tried to clean this corrosion off and I had no luck, so what gauge do you guys think that is? Oh, like 4 gauge. Alright, that one's definitely getting cut. That one's smaller. That's like a 6 or maybe even an 8. I hope I'm not completely blocking the view, but some of this is dependent on what I need to do rather than, I hate to say it, you guys seeing it clearly. Alright, so we have a good deal of cable. We got some corrosion going down into there. Hopefully I got the right size lug. What do you think? Yeah, I had a little bit of hope that I could get this boot over this lug, but it's not going. Right, cable cutters. Let's cut this off. Oh, inhale both. Not recommended. You think this is soft enough to push the cable cutters through? There we go. So, looks like a lot of the copper is good inside. Glad I cut it that short. Let's see what these ends look like. Yeah, that's not horrible. About that one. So what you're looking for is shiny copper. You can see that this is all still shiny as opposed to Alright, let's see what we got. A lot of time you can manage to get yourself into trouble with these things, so my recommendation is to double check that you have everything lining up and working before you spend time. Alright. That is probably the right one. So you want to strip the wire back to roughly in there, and when I strip it back I'll get a better look on whether or not there's corrosion in there. So roughly so I think that'll be a decent end. What do you think? Let's get the other one fitted together. And I'm betting I'm going to need that one. Let's get this out of the way. This one's a little more snug, but that's alright. There's a little bit of corrosion in there, but I'll clean it out as best I can. I don't want to make the cables too short, and I always put a little bit of grease in the inside the crimp. Yeah, that's a little big. All right, we'll see. That'll be pretty, huh? All right. Yeah, I don't know that I want to cut that back any more than that. All right, all bright and shiny. I think that'll be okay. What about that one? That was pretty shiny too. All right. Do we have enough depth? So yeah, that'll go right into that end. The bottom right there. And we'll do this one this way, and we'll do the other one that way, so they can bolt together against each other. All right, crimping tool. So this is the tool to do these right. It's got a set of dies and basically a hydraulic press. Close the valve, you start pumping, and it compresses those. Now I like to stick a dollop of some kind of lube in there before I assemble them. The idea there is that, one, it's not going to affect the thing coming apart. There's no way it's coming apart. You'll see. Well, this thing is a bit overkill. There's a smaller version of this that maybe someday I'll own, but right now this does everything. It's just not as handy. Now, I'm sure everybody has their way. In my case, I want to get everything lined up in the jaws. I'll stick the wire in and I'll crimp it down. I said I want this one facing down, so where's that wire? So let's flip it over. All right, let's do it. And there you go. You got a solid crimp. There's no way that's coming off. Now, me being anal retentive, I usually will put the next smaller die in and smash it down. It's 25. Away because I will probably use these to smash the bigger one down. Sorry, I know I'm not in the frame, but I'm more concerned with doing this well than doing it on camera. Alright. For what it's worth, 16 tons worth of press. There's no way this is coming apart. You get these little wings sometimes. I'll sometimes turn it and go a few degrees the other way. Smash them down. All right, there we go. Look at that. That one's done and ready for some marine heat shrink. Let me do the other. It doesn't bother me about how big that thing is, because that's not that big a wire. Yeah, I don't know if I can get in there. Maybe I can get it in there. Okay, well, we'll do that one then instead of the other one. Alright, so I'll put a little lube in there. Now, I will not follow my pattern, my normal pattern, just because this is a tight fit. And I said I want this one this way. Alright, let's go see which is the right die. I never really agree with these. This says it should be a number 70 die, so let's give that a shot, and I can almost guarantee I'm going to want to smash it down more with the next smaller die. You know what? I think we'll make that work. I do not believe that's the right size die. Yeah, I think some of those metric conversions are a little off. Alright, that's the next smaller one. I think this is going to be a good one. Alright, let's do it. Let's see what we have. That's possible. I'm okay with that, actually. Though I will go with my standard answer. Go one die smaller and see if it fits. And that will probably squeeze a little bit of it out, so I will probably have to turn it a few degrees. I would love if they made these things so you can work with one hand. Yep, let's turn it a few degrees and do it again. There we go, beautiful. I like it. I don't know, what do you guys think? Is this marine grade? I don't think this is marine grade. Let's see what we get. Well, we'll use the good stuff, but unfortunately, my heat gun is not here. So we'll have to use a torch. That's one. Alright, so that is the trick to doing it with a torch. You do not want any scorch marks on it. Now, I would say we are ready to reinstall the battery. Or, I guess not reinstall the battery, but install the new battery. Let's clean things up a little bit. Well, if I leave the sound in, you guys will know that I just pressure washed that. And this will be... All right. Nice, I like this little handle thing. Well, let's fight with the J hooks, which I hate. I've already said that. Yeah, that's about as quickly as I've ever done that. Now, if you're wondering which way it goes, there's a FR for front. Yeah, I can't leave that alone. It's gonna fall out. Alright, if you're wondering what I'm moaning about, one, I didn't clean those, and two, I need to grease those bolts. I'll be annoyed if I'm the reason they don't come out the next time. Super lube, don't leave home without it. It's just a question of getting a little dollop. And I know I've done a bunch of stuff off screen. Maybe I'll edit it out, maybe I won't. You know, the second time around, it's not going to go as easy as the first time. Okay, well, I won't argue with that. If this goes this easy, then you know something's going to happen. Like the bolts will be stuck behind the, or I'm sorry, the new cables will be stuck underneath something. Let's see, are they stuck underneath something? That one isn't. That one isn't either. You know, this is uncommonly good luck. I hate J-bolts. don't know why anybody thinks these things are a good idea. Alright, let's hope that's snug enough that it can't fall out. Let's get the other one in. I wish I had my Milwaukee electric ratchet here. Alright, let's line everything up and get caught in the hood. No surprises there. Alright. I like it. Maybe spread that out a little bit more. Now, I like to put a little dollop of grease on there also. Again, it's not going to come off. But it may prevent a little bit of corrosion. And while I'm at it, a little dollop of grease on the threads. Again, anything to try to prevent a little bit of corrosion. Alright. That'll go there. That'll go on top of there. On top of that, like that. Alright, let's I like the little pattern on the inside of these. So it grips a little better. Maybe we get a shorter socket. Now, you don't want to over tighten these. You don't want to distort them. You just want them to where they stop moving, probably right about there. Yeah, that'll be fine. Alright, now that goes on there, and that goes on top of that. There we go. And we have a little nut, which I think is also 10 millimeter. I'll spread the two out a little bit. No, it's bigger than 10 millimeter. What is that? Maybe a 12? All right. That's one side. Do I want to move that over? I don't know. We'll see. That's back in there. This is back in here. This is back in here. Oh, this is back in here. Come on. Come on. There we go. Now, let's connect the negative, which I stuck down here somewhere. I may get a little spark. There we go. If anybody's curious, this terminal is off of a, I believe, like a 2005 to 2015 Honda Civic. It's a really common terminal. You can get it for like 12 bucks. And I believe we are all set. Let's tuck this back up here so everything is nicely retained. And there we go. Time to clean up. There's a thing with me. If it wasn't for the fact that it was raining, I probably would have done this earlier.